We are counting down 10 California geological sites that look entirely fake. Many places appear to be just ordinary desert or quiet forests at first glance, but the ground hides forces that are still working right now. Heat from miles down cooks rock and water constantly. Sudden floods carve deep canyons in mere hours. Huge fault lines push pieces of the Earth's crust past each other. These are not just pretty views for a postcard. They are active systems shaping the state. The land here is broken into giant blocks that slide and tip. Molten rock meets groundwater and triggers massive steam explosions. If you do not know the signs, the landscape looks like random dry hills. Once you see the hidden patterns, familiar drives turn into maps of deep pressure. We rank these spots based on how strongly the surface hides the truth. The number one spot goes to a location where solid rock looks totally sliced. Let's begin with the 10th spot on our list. Fact number 10, hollow tunnels under solid basalt. Most drivers see miles of flat black rock. They assume it is solid ground. Evidence shows the ground is actually full of hollow passages. This is Lava Bed's National Monument. It covers about 46,000 acres. That spread takes hours to cross by car. Thousands of years ago, moving rivers of molten rock flowed here. The top layer cooled fast and turned into a hard crust. The hot lava inside kept moving and eventually drained out. This process left behind massive empty spaces. These hollow channels are called lava tubes. Caves form here without any water carving at all. There are between 700 and 800 known caves in the area. If someone explored one cave daily, it would take over 2 years. The surface acts like a roof over a huge underground network. Sections of the roof have collapsed over time. This creates open skylights looking down into the dark tunnels below. These caves block wind and rain. That stops normal rock wear almost completely. The dark tunnels remain perfectly intact today. Ancient rock art survives protected inside them right now. So the empty black plain is actually a sprawling hidden basement. Fact number 9, mud volcanoes powered by magma. A desert basin usually means dry dust and still air. Yet the Salton Sea geothermal field behaves totally differently. The mud here bubbles and burps constantly. Measurements show temperatures reach around 600 degrees Fahrenheit underground. This extreme heat sits just a couple of kilometers down. Deep heat warms the groundwater and pushes it forcefully upward. Hot water and expanding gas push straight through the dirt. This turns ordinary soil into a boiling liquid soup. The moving mud builds small cones. They look like tiny volcanoes built by hand. Steam vents shoot white clouds into the bone-dry air. The water here holds high amounts of dissolved salts. It also carries heavy concentrations of metals. When the liquid evaporates into the sky, it leaves heavy minerals. These thick crusts coat the surface everywhere. They stain the ground bright yellow and stark white. The mix of steam, boiling mud, and chemical stains looks alien. Magma pushes very close to the surface here. That deep engine keeps the hot fluids moving right now. So the muddy puddles are actually escape valves. They release massive pressure from deep within the earth. Fact number 8. Limestone spires, built completely underwater. People look at the pale rock towers near Mono Lake. They think these pillars were carved by howling winds. They were actually built completely underwater by a slow chemical reaction. Fresh spring water pushes up from the lake bottom constantly. This rising spring water carries a massive amount of calcium. The lake water itself is highly alkaline. It is also packed heavily with dissolved carbonates. When these two different waters mix, calcium carbonate forms. This chemical settles out and creates solid stone. The result is a porous limestone known as tufa. The minerals harden directly around the spring vents. This builds tall, jagged spires over long periods. Over recent decades, water levels in the basin dropped significantly. This exposed the underwater stone forest to the open air. The lake water is roughly twice as salty as the ocean. It looks far too harsh to support any life. Instead, the alkaline water feeds millions of tiny brine shrimp. These thick swarms of shrimp support massive bird flocks. The chemical mixing still happens underwater today. The pale towers are a visible map showing past shorelines. They remain standing heavily on the edge of the water right now. Fact number 7. Salt polygons shaped by convection. Badwater Basin looks exactly like a flat white parking lot, but the ground is organized into a massive grid. Repeating shapes stretch endlessly across the valley floor. The basin sits roughly 282 feet below sea level. Water runs down from the surrounding mountains and gets trapped. The basin has absolutely no drainage outlet. The intense desert heat rapidly evaporates the liquid water. Heavy salts stay behind and build a thick white crust. This salty skin cracks into rigid geometric polygons. The shapes often measure several meters straight across. The grid lines look deliberately engineered by a machine. Salty groundwater slowly circulates directly beneath the hard crust. Heavy salt water sinks downward while lighter water rises upward. This circular underground flow is known as convection. The moving fluid pushes dissolved salt toward the cracked edges. This action builds raised ridges around thinner central bowls. The geometric pattern stretches for miles across the basin floor. Almost no plants exist to hide the clean geometry. The underground water keeps shifting the salt right now. The barren white floor is actually a complex living system. It runs entirely on basic physics and constant heat. Fact number 6. Acid pools heating the mountain. Hikers in Lassen Volcanic National Park expect quiet pine forests. Then the ground opens up into a wide steaming basin. This harsh zone is called Bumpass Hell. A cooling body of magma sits deep underground. The magma rests about 3 to 5 miles down. That magma superheats the solid rock layer right above it. Cold rainwater seeps down through deep cracks in the earth. The water hits the hot zone and flashes into vapor. Surface vents shoot hot steam straight into the sky. This steam reaches around 320 degrees Fahrenheit. That measures significantly hotter than normal boiling water. Hot, highly acidic fluids also rise to the surface. The powerful acid breaks solid rock down into soft clay. Trapped gas bubbles up through this wet clay. This constant churning creates thick, moving mud pots. The acid pools dissolve minerals that paint the bare soil. Built-up sulfur leaves bright yellow patches across the basin. Iron compounds create vibrant orange stains everywhere. The acidic water easily corrodes normal rocks along the edges. Fumaroles continue to blast hot gas constantly. This quiet mountain slope acts like a working exhaust pipe. The magma chamber fuels the entire system right now. Fact number 5. Tilted rocks, stripes cut. Open normal canyon walls usually show flat horizontal layers of rock. Painted canyon features rock layers standing almost straight up. The steep gorge walls show distinct bands of color. You see prominent stripes of red, orange, and deep purple. These stacked stripes are actually old deposits of sediment. Ancient lakes and rivers dropped mud and sand over time. Iron trapped inside the dirt reacted directly with oxygen. This oxidation caused the minerals to slowly rust. The rust created the bright, vibrant color tones. Then massive tectonic plates squeezed the entire region. The nearby San Andreas Fault Zone pushed the flat layers. The immense pressure tipped the rock vertically. Sudden flash floods rushed into the new narrow space. Fast-moving water acts exactly like coarse sandpaper on soft rock. The rushing floods carved a deep, tight slot. Bare rock stays perfectly exposed because plants struggle to grow. New storms still funnel heavy water through the exact cut. Every single flood scrapes off the loose dust. This action reveals the vibrant colors all over again. The canyon displays a visible record of ground pressure today. Fact number 4. Hexagon columns made from lava. A giant rock wall sits high in the California mountains. It looks like a massive stack of perfect wooden pencils. The stone columns have 6 sides and fit together tightly. People often assume humans carved and placed them on purpose. The rigid structure is actually a completely natural cooling pattern. A thick river of basalt lava filled the entire valley. The outside layer of the molten lava froze first. The insulated inside cooled at a very slow, steady rate. As the solid rock cooled, it shrank noticeably in size. The shrinking rock had to crack to release the tension. Hexagons easily spread out the stress evenly across a surface. The cooling cracks split the lava flow into tall pillars. Some individual stone columns measure 60 feet tall. That stands as high as a 6-story building. Thousands of years later, a heavy glacier moved over the area. The thick ice scraped away the messy top layer of rock. This scouring exposed the perfectly neat vertical lines underneath. Geologists officially call this specific formation columnar basalt. Liquid water still seeps deep into the cracks today. Winter ice pushes the blocks apart, changing the wall constantly. Fact number 3, chemical towers in open desert. More than 500 sharp stone towers dominate the Mojave Desert. Some of the largest structures reach 140 feet tall. That equals a 14-story building sticking straight up from dirt. The towers look completely out of place on the dry ground. They actually built themselves entirely underwater. The flat expanse around them is the dried floor of Searles Lake. The spires are formed from tufa, a soft, porous limestone, groundwater carrying heavy calcium pushed upward through the lake bottom. It mixed directly with the alkaline lake water. The chemical reaction dropped solid minerals out of the liquid. The minerals stacked up slowly over thousands of years. The process created mineral chimneys around the upward water flow. As the regional climate changed, the massive lake eventually dried up. The water vanished entirely, leaving the towers stranded in open air. The soft lake mud hardened into a thick, supportive crust. This crust kept the extremely tall structures from collapsing. Chemical traces of the vanished lake remain in the soil right now. So the blazing dry desert holds a frozen underwater forest. It stands totally unchanged under the sun today. Fact number 2, instant blast scar. Exposing time. A massive hole in Death Valley looks like a fresh meteor strike. The steep bowl measures roughly half a mile wide. The bottom drops about 770 feet straight down. That reaches deeper than 2 football fields stacked vertically. The crater floor is totally flat and covered in shattered rock. The cause was not a falling rock from deep space. Rising basaltic magma hit a hidden pocket of shallow groundwater. The extreme heat caused the water to instantly flash into steam. Steam expands rapidly and creates enormous uncontrolled pressure. The pressure blasted thousands of tons of rock into the sky. This violent steam explosion happened roughly 2,100 years ago. That rates as very young in standard geological terms. The massive blast cut a clean cross-section through older rock layers. The tall walls clearly show colorful gravels that settled there earlier. Extreme desert dryness prevents plants from growing over the steep edges. Wind and water rarely soften the harsh lines here. The total lack of rain keeps the blast mark looking razor sharp right now. It remains an empty rocky basin today. Fact number 1, dry waterfalls from broken dams. A cliff in the eastern Sierra Desert features a curved, smooth lip. It drops sharply into a deep bowl, shaping a massive waterfall. The only thing missing from the scene is the water itself. Slow, steady rivers typically carve valleys shaped like a V. The smooth rock corridors here suggest a very short, violent rush. Natural dams form deep in the mountain valleys during the Ice Age. Sometimes a landslide or ice wall holding back a lake would suddenly fail. Trapped water escaped immediately in a massive, destructive pulse flood. This thick water moved fast enough to scour solid base rock. The deep flow carried heavy boulders to grind the channels incredibly smooth. The force easily drilled deep plunge pools at the bottom of the cliffs. These sudden floods stripped soil away in hours instead of centuries. Boulders the exact size of cars were carried miles and dropped. The thick flood waters are completely gone, but the hard rock scars remain perfectly preserved. When heavy rain falls today, The runoff still funnels heavily into these carved grooves. The landscape remembers the sudden violence. Every spot on this list proves the exact same point. California geology is not just sitting there looking pretty. It is a live display of forces that alter the earth. Heat rises up, water sinks down, fault lines stretch and snap heavily. A flat basin is really a trap for salt that shifts underground. A quiet hillside is really a vent for a boiling magma chamber. A desert cliff is a record of an ice age flood that changed the map in an afternoon. These patterns repeat because physics builds the same geometry over and over. The land looks finished, but the engine never turns off. The ground remains completely active beneath our feet right now. The next time you see an empty desert plain or a sharp canyon wall, you know the truth. You are looking at a giant machine that is still running.